Jesus' Eastern Education, the Aquarian Gospel on the Lost Years in India and Egypt. Part 1. The Invitation, Setting the Stage. Imagine the greatest story ever told, but with a central chapter missing. The canonical Gospels present us with a profound mystery, an 18-year silence that echoes through the centuries. We meet a precocious boy of 12 in the Temple of Jerusalem, astonishing the elders with his understanding. And then the curtain falls. When it rises again, a man of nearly 30 emerges from the wilderness of Judea, radiating an authority that can command the winds and the waves, speaking with a wisdom that would forever alter the soul of humanity. The question is as inevitable as it is haunting. What happened in between? Where was he? This silence is not an empty one. It is a pregnant pause in the cosmic narrative, inviting us to listen for whispers from the East. This gap in the record is the very space where the Aquarian Gospel breathes its life. It proposes that those years were not spent in obscurity, but in active, relentless pursuit of divine knowledge. It suggests that the carpenter from Nazareth was also a pilgrim on the Silk Road, a student in the shadow of the Himalayas, and an initiate in the sun-baked halls of Egyptian pyramids. This is not a story of a god simply waiting for his power to manifest, but of a soul undertaking the most profound spiritual education, mastering the universal laws that govern all of existence, from the cycles of karma to the architecture of consciousness itself. The journey of those lost years is, in truth, a mirror held up to our own spiritual seeking. We all have our own silent years, our own periods of questioning, of learning, of internal transformation that remain invisible to the outside world. To inquire into the missing years of Jesus is to honor the missing chapters in our own becoming. It is to acknowledge that wisdom is not bestowed, but earned, that enlightenment is not an accident, but the culmination of a long and arduous pilgrimage toward the source of all light. This is the first step in knowing thyself, recognizing that the path exists. The vessel for this narrative arrived in the dawn of the 20th century, a man named Levi Dowling. A minister and physician, Dowling claimed that in the quiet hours of the early morning, between 2 and 6 a.m., the time he called the solemn silence of the soul, he was able to access the Akashic Records. Think of the Akasha not as a library of books, but as a living, vibrational imprint of every thought, word, and deed that has ever occurred. It is the memory of nature itself, the universe's own consciousness. From this vast ethereal archive, Dowling transcribed what he titled the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. The name itself is a declaration of intent. The age of Aquarius, as understood in esoteric thought, represents a shift from centralized religious authority to a direct, personal experience of the divine. It is an age of universality, where the truths hidden within all the world's spiritual traditions are synthesized into a coherent whole for every individual to grasp. An Aquarian gospel, therefore, is not meant for one tribe or one creed. It is a gospel for humanity, emphasizing the cosmic Christ principle that dwells within every heart, waiting to be realized, rather than the exclusive identity of a single man.
So we are not dealing with a text excavated from a desert cave, but one channeled through a modern consciousness. This does not diminish its power, it reframes it. Its value lies not in its historical provenance in the traditional sense, but in its philosophical and spiritual coherence. It presents a vision of a unified world spirituality where the rivers of Eastern and Western mysticism converge into a single mighty stream. It offers answers to the gnawing questions of the sincere seeker, painting a portrait of Christ not as a theological exception, but as the ultimate example of a realized human being. So what is it we are about to embark upon? Consider this audiobook not a replacement for the New Testament, but a profound and expansive prequel. It is the backstory of the Messiah's consciousness. We will follow a young man named Yeshua on a geographical and spiritual odyssey that will take him first to the ancient learning centers of India, where he will sit at the feet of Brahmin sages and Buddhist masters, absorbing the timeless truths of karma, reincarnation, and compassion. He will not go to refute, but to learn, to debate, and to integrate. From the lush plains of the Ganges, our narrative will then turn westward to the sands of Egypt, the land of the pharaohs and the great mystery schools. Here, Yeshua will penetrate the deepest esoteric secrets, facing symbolic trials within the heart of the Great Pyramid itself. This is where the man becomes the master, where the student graduates as the Christ. We will explore the 7 sacred schools of Egypt from healing to prophecy and uncover the Hermetic principles, as above, so below, that form the bedrock of all miraculous works and profound wisdom. Ultimately, this journey is about the realization of a single, transformative idea, that the story of Jesus is the story of every soul writ large. His path from Nazareth to India to Egypt and back is an allegory for our own journey from ignorance to self-knowledge, from the outer world of form to the inner kingdom of heaven. As we traverse this narrative together, remember the name of this channel, Temet Nosce. For the ultimate destination of this entire epic is not a place on a map, but a state of being within you. The lost years are an invitation to find yourself. Part 2. The Eastern Sojourn, the Young Sage in India. The scriptural silence begins with a departure, a quiet leaving from the familiar streets of Nazareth. The Aquarian Gospel paints a picture not of a solitary wanderer, but of a keen-eyed youth traveling with a merchant caravan along the legendary Silk Road. This was the internet of the ancient world, a flowing river of goods, languages, and ideas connecting Jerusalem to the fabled cities of the East. Imagine the young Yeshua not as a solemn icon, but a vibrant and curious soul, his spirit ablaze with an insatiable thirst for the wisdom he knew awaited him. His journey was a pilgrimage of the heart, a conscious moving toward the source of the world's oldest spiritual traditions. He was drawn, like an iron filing to a magnet, to the great learning centers of India, to Benares, the holy city on the Ganges, and to the temples of Jagannath. These were the universities of the soul, where for millennia sages had dedicated their lives to mapping the interior cosmos. He did not arrive as a conquering messiah, but as a humble student, a chela, seeking a guru. This initial posture is itself a profound teaching for all of us. It reminds us that the first step toward true knowledge is the surrender of our certainty. The ego must become the student before the soul can become the master. His journey teaches us that if the truth is not found on your own doorstep, you must be willing to travel to the ends of the earth to find it. This trek symbolizes the first and most crucial leg of our own inner journey. Before we can master anything, we must first seek out the principles, the teachers, and the experiences that will form our foundation. We must leave the comfort of what we know and venture into the unknown territories of new philosophies and challenging concepts. The East, in this allegorical sense, represents the dawn of understanding, the first light of consciousness breaking over the horizon of a previously unexamined life. It is the call to adventure that every one of us must eventually answer. In the ashrams and along the riverbanks, Yeshua engaged the learned Brahmin priests in deep dialogue. He immersed himself in the vast ocean of Sanatan Dharma, the eternal truth. Here he encountered the concept of Brahman, the formless, limitless, supreme reality that is the source of all that is, a concept of God that transcends any single name or form. He studied the intricate laws of karma, the cosmic principle of cause and effect that ensures every action, every thought carries a consequence, weaving the tapestry of our soul's journey through countless lifetimes. He delved into the doctrine of reincarnation, understanding life not as a single, one-chance event, but as a soul's long curriculum in the school of earth. He reveals that he did not simply accept these teachings passively. He questioned, he refined, and he illuminated them from the perspective of his own innate Christ consciousness. In one powerful discourse, he is said to have challenged the rigidity of the caste system, not to destroy the wisdom of the Brahmins, but to universalize it. He taught that the true measure of a person is not their birth, but their spiritual attainment, their compassion, and their realization of the divine within. He was in effect connecting the impersonal law of karma with the personal responsibility of a loving heart. This synthesis is a critical lesson for the modern seeker. It shows us that spiritual growth is not about swapping one rigid dogma for another. It is about finding the essential, universal truth that resides within every sacred tradition and making it your own. The law of karma, for instance, is not a fatalistic prison. It is the ultimate empowerment. It tells us that our future is being shaped by our present choices, that we are the architects of our destiny. To know this law is to take radical responsibility for your life, to understand that you're carving your soul's future with every thought you think and every deed you do.
His quest then led him to the forests and monasteries beyond the Vedic traditions, to the profound teachings of the Jains and the Buddhists. From the Jain masters, he absorbed the radical principle of ahimsa, non-violence in thought, word, and deed towards all living beings. This was not merely a dietary or social rule. It was a fundamental recognition of the sacred life force, the divine spark that exists within every creature. It is the practice of seeing the world not as a resource to be exploited, but as a communion of souls to be revered. This deep respect for all life would later echo in his own teaching to love your neighbor as yourself. From the Buddhists, he encountered the profound analysis of the human condition, the four noble truths that diagnose the universality of suffering and its root in desire and attachment. He studied the Noble Eightfold Path, not as a set of rules, but as a practical, moment-to-moment guide to right living, right thinking, and right awareness. He learned the power of mindfulness and meditation as tools to quiet the restless mind and perceive the nature of reality without the filter of the ego. This was the technology of enlightenment, the practical methodology for stilling the inner storm. What we see here is the young adept building the ethical and mental foundation for his future mission. Ahimsa and compassion became the heart of his message, while the mastery of mind through meditation became the source of his unshakable peace and power. For us, this part of the journey is an invitation to audit our own lives. Where can we practice a deeper nonviolence in our speech and our judgments? How can we apply the compassionate understanding that everyone is suffering in some way? And most importantly, are we cultivating the daily discipline of mindfulness to see through the illusions cast by our own desires and fears? This is the eastern leg of the journey, establishing an ethical life and a disciplined mind. Part 3. The Egyptian Initiation, the Priest of the Pyramid.
Having drunk deeply from the wisdom wells of the East, the soul of Yeshua now turned towards a different kind of temple. His journey to Egypt was a transition from the expansive, philosophical understanding of the cosmos to the focused, practical application of its laws. If India was about knowing, Egypt would be about becoming. He crossed into the land of the pharaohs, a realm where the boundary between the earthly and the divine was intentionally thin, where the very architecture of the world, the pyramids, the temples, the Sphinx, served as a massive spiritual technology designed to initiate human consciousness into the mysteries of eternity. He entered the legendary schools of Alexandria, Heliopolis, and Memphis, known to the initiates as the Halls of Amenti. These were not schools in the modern sense, with classrooms and curricula. They were vortices of energy, lineages of secret knowledge passed from master to adept in a direct chain of spiritual transmission. Here, the air itself was thick with the presence of ancients, with the accumulated power of centuries of ritual and meditation. This was where the abstract truths of the East were to be crystallized into tangible, usable power. He was moving from theory to practice, from the map of reality to the direct experience of its inner workings. For us, this represents a crucial pivot on our own path. It's one thing to understand spiritual principles intellectually, to read about non-attachment or the power of love. It is something different entirely to embody those principles, to have them so integrated into your being that they become your spontaneous, natural response to life's challenges. Egypt symbolizes this stage of embodiment. It is the demanding, often intense process of taking the beautiful ideas we have collected and forging them in the fire of our own daily experience, turning philosophy into lived wisdom and concepts into character. His training in Egypt was a systematic ascent through the 7 core disciplines of esoteric mastery, each school representing a different facet of the one universal truth. He began in the school of Alexandria, where he mastered the knowledge of the physical body, learning the healing arts, not just through herbs and remedies, but by understanding the body as a temple of light, learning to manipulate the vital energies that animate our form. This was the foundation, mastering the vessel before attempting to fill it with a greater voltage of the divine. From there, he progressed to the school of the sacred scrolls, where he studied the cosmic law, the immutable principles that govern everything from the orbit of a planet to the journey of a soul. He moved onward through the school of the arts, understanding the creative power of sound and symbol, the school of science, comprehending the geometry of creation, the school of philosophy, honing the power of the spoken word, and the school of rhythm, learning the ebbs and flows of cosmic and personal energy. Each school was a key that unlocked a specific chamber within his own consciousness, empowering him with a new aspect of sovereignty. This structured progression is a powerful metaphor for our own development. We cannot jump to the summit. We must first attend to the fundamentals of our health, our understanding of natural law, and our creative expression before we can hope to handle the profound voltages of higher consciousness. This systematic approach dismantles the fantasy of instant enlightenment. It shows us that mastery is a holistic process. You cannot be a spiritual master if you're a slave to your physical ailments. You cannot command the forces of nature if you're ignorant of its laws. The 7 schools remind us that our growth must be integrated, touching every part of our being, body, mind, and spirit. We are not just trying to become spiritually aware. We are trying to become whole,
complete human beings, and that requires a dedicated and multifaceted curriculum for the soul. The culmination of all this training was the ultimate trial, the sevenfold initiation in the heart of the Great Pyramid of Cheops. This was not a graduation ceremony, but a life-or-death confrontation with the self. For 3 days and 3 nights, symbolically mirroring his later ordeal in the tomb, the fully prepared Yeshua descended into the king's chamber, a place designed to amplify consciousness to its absolute limit. Here he was to face the 7 tests, which are the universal archetypal challenges every master must overcome. These are the internal demons, the final residues of the human ego that stand between the soul and its complete union with God. The tests are profound allegories. He faced the test of fear, where the primal terrors of mortality and the unknown arose to be met by perfect love. He faced the test of illusion, where the shimmering veils of Maya, the world of appearance, were pulled back to reveal the stark, beautiful reality of the one divine substance. He faced the tests of power, of temptation, of doubt, and of solitude, each one a refining fire burning away a specific impurity in his consciousness. The final test was the ultimate surrender, the complete and total relinquishment of any last shred of separate will into the will of the Father. It was the death of the Yeshua as a separate individual and the birth of the Christ as a unified expression of the divine. This is the cosmic drama at the heart of every true spiritual path. The period is not just a stone structure in Egypt. It is a symbol of your own layered consciousness. The tests he faced are the very same tests we encounter in our own dark nights of the soul, the moments of profound fear, the seduction of egoic power, the crippling doubts, and the feeling of spiritual isolation. His victory is a template for our own. It shows us that the purpose of the path is not to avoid these trials, but to walk directly into them, armed with the knowledge and power we have cultivated, and to emerge on the other side not merely intact, but reborn.
Having passed through the initiatory fires, Yeshua now emerged as a master of the mysteries. The knowledge he had gained was no longer theoretical, it was a lived reality. He understood the Hermetic principle of as above, so below, as within, so without, not as a philosophical maxim, but as the literal operating manual of the universe. He realized that the macrocosm of the heavens and the microcosm of the human being are mirrors of one another, bound together by a web of vibrational correspondence. This is the secret behind the miracles that would later define his ministry. His healing works, for instance, were not violations of natural law, but applications of a higher law. He understood disease as a disruption in the flow of the body's light and energy. By the sheer, focused power of his perfected will and love, he could restructure those energies, commanding harmony to return to a disordered system. When he calmed the storm, he was not commanding the weather, but speaking to the elemental consciousness of wind and water, which, like all of creation, responds to the command of a consciousness that is in full alignment with the divine source. He was working with the cosmos, not against it, from a position of recognized unity. This demystifies the miraculous and makes it profoundly relevant to us. We may not be able to walk on water, but we can absolutely learn to calm the inner storms of our emotional turmoil. We may not be able to instantly heal a physical disease in another, but we can certainly become a healing presence, using the power of love and focused intention to bring peace to a disordered situation. The message of the Egyptian initiation is that you too are a conduit for cosmic forces. Your thoughts, your words, and your intentions are not insignificant. They are powerful acts of creation that shape your below in accordance with the above of your highest spiritual understanding. You are being invited to take responsibility for the power you already wield. Part 4. The Return, the Gospel of a Universal Christ. The man who walked out of the Egyptian desert was not the same youth who had entered it years before. Yeshua, now the Christ, returned to the hills of Judea, carrying within him the fully integrated wisdom of both East and West. He was a living synthesis, a bridge between worlds. The abstract Brahman of the Hindus and the personalized God of his Hebrew ancestors were now reconciled in his consciousness as two faces of the same infinite reality. The compassionate heart of the Buddha and the powerful magic of the Egyptian hierophant were now united in his being. He returned not to found a new religion, but to plant a seed of a new consciousness, one that was universal, personal, and empowering. His return marks the moment when the fully realized self steps back into its ordinary world, transformed and ready to serve. This is the hero's return in the classic journey, and it's a phase we all must navigate. After our own periods of deep learning and internal transformation, we are called to bring that new self back into our families, our workplaces, and our communities. The test is no longer in the secluded pyramid chamber, but in the bustling marketplace. Can you maintain that hard-won peace in the face of daily irritation? Can you express that boundless compassion when confronted with pettiness and judgment? This is the final and most practical application of the wisdom journey. He did not return with scrolls or relics, but with a living truth burning in his heart. His very presence was a teaching. The authority that would soon captivate and confound the masses was not an assumed role, but the natural radiation of a soul that had achieved sovereignty over itself. He had faced the totality of the human condition across two great civilizations and had mastered it. Now, he was ready to express that mastery in the language and context of his own people, to offer them the keys to the very kingdom he had found within himself. The message he brought, as detailed in the Aquarian Gospel, is a clarion call to self-realization that resonates powerfully with the modern seeker. At its core is the revolutionary declaration that the kingdom of God is within you. This is the ultimate Temet Nosce. He was not pointing toward a heavenly destination after death, but to a present and accessible dimension of consciousness, an inner realm of peace, power, and unity that exists here and now, buried beneath the layers of our egoic conditioning. This single idea dismantles the need for an external priestly class. It makes every individual the sovereign of their own spiritual journey. He taught a refined understanding of the law of cause and consequence, or karma. In his parables and lessons, he illustrated that we are not victims of a capricious fate, but active participants in crafting our destiny. As you sow, so shall you reap is not a threat, but a divine promise of empowerment. It means that the quality of your inner world, your thoughts, your intentions, your secret desires, is the primary seed that blossoms into the conditions of your outer life. To change your harvest, you must first tend to the garden of your own heart and mind, a task that requires relentless self-honesty and discipline. Furthermore, he embodied the Christ principle as a universal potential, not a unique personal identity. The Christ is the anointed one, yes, but the anointing is the awakening of the Christ consciousness, the recognition of the divine seed within every human soul. His life was a demonstration of what is possible for every one of us when we align our human will completely with the divine will. This is the heart of the Aquarian message, the end of exclusive salvation and the beginning of universal enlightenment. Your spiritual work is not to worship him from a distance, but to follow the path he walked, to overcome the same inner tests, and to realize the same Christ nature in the context of your own life.
His subsequent ministry, as recontextualized by this narrative, becomes a living demonstration of this embodied wisdom. The miracles were not magic tricks to prove his divinity, but natural expressions of a consciousness operating in harmony with cosmic law. When he healed the sick, he was restoring a disrupted energy pattern to its original harmonious blueprint. When he multiplied the loaves and fishes, he was demonstrating a master's understanding of the limitless, manifesting potential of the divine mind when channeled through a purified vessel. These acts were object lessons designed to shock his followers out of their limited perception of reality and point them toward a world governed by spiritual, not just material principles. His interactions with people were always aimed at awakening this same potential in them. He didn't just forgive the woman caught in adultery. He saw past her mistake to her true spiritual identity and called that forth. He didn't just tell Zacchaeus to be a better man. He dined with him, acknowledging the divine spark in the despised tax collector and empowering its emergence. Every encounter was an initiation, a mirror held up to show people who they truly were beyond their sins, their social status, and their self-imposed limitations. He was the ultimate witness, seeing the Christ in everyone before they could see it in themselves. This is the model for how we can live our own awakened lives. You may not perform public miracles, but you can absolutely be a healing presence by seeing the wholeness in others when they feel broken. You can manifest solutions where others see only lack by trusting in the abundant intelligence of the universe. Your simple, conscious presence can become a mirror that reflects back to people their own inherent goodness and potential. The ministry of Jesus, understood through this lens, is an invitation to make your entire life a ministry, not of preaching, but of practicing this profound unity in every gesture, every word, and every silent thought.
Part 5. The Reflection. Know Thyself in the Aquarian Age. And so we arrive at the heart of the matter, the very reason this story has echoed through the centuries and found its way to you, right here, right now. The 18-year Odyssey of Jesus is far more than a historical curiosity or an alternative religious narrative. It is the grand allegory for your own spiritual awakening. The journey to India and Egypt is not a geographical trek you must undertake, but an internal pilgrimage you are already on. The lost years are not a gap in an ancient text. They are the unwritten chapters of your own becoming, the silent, sacred space where your soul is being prepared for its own moment of emergence and purpose. The masters he sought in the East and the West, the Brahmin, the Buddhist, the Egyptian Hierophant, are archetypes of the inner wisdom that already resides within you. The discerning logic of the Brahmin is your own capacity for clear thinking and discrimination. The boundless compassion of the Buddha is the unconditional love that sleeps in your own heart. The potent will of the Egyptian master is your own latent power to command the inner chaos and shape your reality. His entire journey whispers the ultimate truth. You need not seek your salvation outside of yourself. The entire cosmos, with all its laws and its magic, is mirrored in the intimate landscape of your own consciousness. To know yourself is to know all of this. The 7 tests in the pyramid are the very trials you face in the quiet of your own mind. The test of fear arises when you contemplate a life change or face the unknown. The test of illusion is the seductive pull of materialism and the ego's stories. The test of power happens every time you have a chance to manipulate a situation for personal gain. You are in the pyramid chamber every single day. His victory is not a remote historical event. It is a living template, a promise that what he achieved is the inherent potential of the human spirit, and therefore it is your potential too. Your life is your mystery school. You might wonder, in our age of quantum physics and digital noise, what relevance does a channeled gospel from the early 1900s hold? The answer is that it has never been more relevant. We are drowning in information, but starving for wisdom. We are more connected than ever, yet feel a profound spiritual loneliness. The Aquarian Gospel speaks directly to this modern condition. It offers a spirituality that is not at war with science, but one that sees scientific law as the physical expression of spiritual principle. It provides a framework that honors all paths while empowering you to walk your own. It answers the deep, gnawing question of the sincere seeker. Is this all there is? By thundering a definitive no. It presents a universe that is intelligent, purposeful, and intimately involved in your soul's education. The laws of karma and cause and effect provide a satisfying moral and existential architecture to a world that can often feel random and unjust. It replaces the fear of a judgmental God with the empowering responsibility of self-judgment and self-correction under a universal, loving law. It turns spirituality from a passive insurance policy for the afterlife into an active, thrilling, and demanding engagement with life itself. Of course, one must approach it with discernment. Scholars will rightly point out its lack of historical or archaeological evidence, but to judge it solely by that metric is to miss its entire point. Its value is not as a history book, but as a wisdom text, a psychological and spiritual map. It is a work of profound mythology in the truest sense, not a falsehood, but a symbolic narrative that conveys perennial truths about the human soul's journey toward the divine. You do not have to believe Levi Dowling read the Akashic Records to appreciate the profound and transformative power of the truths he presented. So, as the echoes of this story settle in your mind, let me leave you with this final contemplation. The lost years of Jesus are found the moment you begin to explore your own. The Christ he became is the consciousness waiting to be born in you. The Aquarian age is not a future event on a calendar, but it is a shift in human awareness that begins one heart, one mind at a time. It begins when you choose to look within for answers you once sought from external authorities. It begins when you take full responsibility for the energy you bring into a room, for the thoughts you entertain in the quiet, and for the life you are consciously creating. This journey we have taken together through the Aquarian Gospel is an invitation to stop seeking a Messiah out there and to start realizing the Savior within. It is a call to make your own life a gospel, a testament to the power of love, the reality of law, and the triumph of the Spirit. Your path is unique, your tests are your own, but the destination is the same for all, the profound and liberating realization that you and the Father are one. The kingdom of heaven has been within you all along, waiting only for your recognition. And so, the path of the Master is revealed not as a distant scripture, but as a living map etched into the very soul of your being. The lost years were never truly lost. They were only waiting for you to find them within yourself. If this journey has illumined your inner landscape, if you feel the call to explore the mysteries that lie between the lines of your own life, then we invite you to walk this path with us. Please help our channel grow and spread this message of inner discovery by liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications. The next revelation is always just one click away from a seeking heart. Share your insights and the mysteries you wish to unravel next in the comments below, for your voice is a vital part of this unfolding conversation. Remember, the greatest gospel is not written in a book, but in the silent, steadfast journey of a soul coming to know itself. Thank you for watching.